Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. On this auspicious occasion of Anagarika Alex joining the community of 8 Precept ones, thought to reflect a little bit about the 8 Precept structure and the Anagarika life. One of the things that I like to emphasize, even though when we consider the precepts, the aspect of the Sikkhapada, the spelling out of the rules, sort of what it's cast in the form of, I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature, not taking what is not given, refraining from intentional sexual activity, refraining from lying, all that refraining, going without. That this is the Sikkhapada, or the spelling out, the form of the rule or the behavior. But it's important to consider where that behavior comes from. What's that inspired by, or what's that derived from? And so that the 8 precepts is not just controlling our behavior, but rather it's a way of encouraging us to draw upon our own most noble and, say, skillful, our most, respectful and wholesome qualities. What is called the guna Dhamma, or those spiritual qualities of the heart. And so that if the precepts were just about controlling behavior, then they'll be very, very limited. It's not just a matter of defining how we act, but the purpose of them is to support that training of the heart and the active development of those wholesome qualities. So in this respect, I like to refer to a particular couple of suttas in the Book of the Eights in the Anguttara Nikaya, suttas 41 and 42, if you're interested to look them up, the Uposatha suttas. And in this, the Buddha spells out his understanding or his methodology, what his reasoning is behind the establishment of the 8 precepts, particularly as a form of training for the lay community on the moon days, but I think it translates more as fully and as accurately for the Anagarika life as well. And what he points out is that the 8 precepts is the natural behavior of the Arahant, the enlightened mind, and so that once a being has realized full and complete enlightenment, then they have no inclination towards violence. They can't deliberately take life. And so that by adopting the behavior of the 8 precepts and taking that first precept, Panatipata, then, as the Buddha puts it, and that in this way one will be living as the Arahants do, and that will be for one's long-lasting welfare and happiness. And then so too with the rest of the 8 precepts, with not taking life, and with not engaging in sexual activity, not lying, not using intoxicants, only eating in one part of the day, not using entertainment and adornment, and having a simple sleeping place. Each one of them is based around, this is the natural inclination of an enlightened being. And so when you adopt the behavior, taking on those standards of conduct and action and speech, then, as he puts it, we are living as the Arahants do, and that's for our long-lasting welfare and happiness. Because having that standard to be there as a guide, like having a map. So the map is not the territory, but the map tells you, how to get to where you need to go with respect to the territory. And so that when we are, adopting those behaviors, refraining from sexual activity, refraining from stealing and lying and intoxication and so forth, then what we're doing is we're drawing upon those aspects of our heart, that in us which is completely incapable of violence, that in us which is completely honest, that delights in honesty and delights in harmlessness, that aspect of us which is completely uninterested in sexual activity, that just doesn't wish to, or is not interested in relating to other human beings in sexual ways. It's not seeking entertainment. We don't need to be entertained or to be sensually stimulated in order to feel happy or complete, to feel satisfied. With the eighth precept, not taking refuge in sleep, where just to switch off and to not feel, to go numb, to be unconscious is not taken as a refuge. That the peace and happiness doesn't come from just switching off or being insensitive or disconnected to sleep through life. So I feel this is very important, taking on the 8 precepts as an anagarika, also lay people living here in the monastery and taking this as a standard of conduct, even though there is that form of don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. The purpose of it is to encourage us, to help us to live from that place of clarity and simplicity, to draw upon our own to really listen to our heart of hearts, to draw upon that within us, which is our most, true and the spiritual qualities of our nature, and then to see the results of that, because as the Buddha puts it in that teaching, living as the Arahants do, then that's for our long-lasting welfare and happiness. By adopting that mode of behavior, by choosing not to lie, not to steal, not to to be living very simply, very harmlessly, and to not be seeking distraction, then we can witness the results of that. What's the effects of not lying? What's the effects of not engaging in sexual activity with each other? What are the effects of just eating in one part of the day, or not seeking entertainment and distraction? And then by seeing the results of that, then that encourages us. It's like following the map and seeing that we're heading in a good direction. So I feel this is extremely important to hold the precepts in this way and in this manner, rather than a set of restrictions and things that are fencing us in or limiting our freedoms. Is rather like getting into a vehicle, again using the example of traveling, getting into a vehicle in order to travel a long distance. Yes, you're confined within the space of the vehicle, you're getting into the van or the car, but because you're undertaking this particular mode of being, then you can really get places, you can get where you want to go. So that if we understand the precepts in this way, we take on the anagarika life, take on the 8 precepts, then rather than a set of limitations of being its whole characteristics, rather like a vehicle. Yes, there are limiting aspects to it, but the purpose of the whole thing is to help us to travel, to help us to get to where we want to go, and to enable us to fulfill the potential that we have as human beings. And so I feel that if one clearly establishes this in one's mind, then it helps to cultivate a very skillful and supportive attitude, and can use the format of monastery life, living in the community, living in the monastery according to the disciplines that we have, in a very effective and liberating way. That's how it works. Another of the aspects, say the rituals we have of taking the 3 refuges and determining the 8 precepts. Just the simple act of bowing. We do a lot of bowing in this community. We not just in the ceremonies here in the pujas in the temple, but also our training, particularly as monastics, is whenever you come into a room where there's a shrine, then you should bow 3 times. So whenever I go to my kuti, when I go into my kuti, I bow 3 times. Before I leave, you bow 3 times before you leave. Every time I come and go, I do my best to sustain that as a discipline. Again, that can seem like just a set of behaviors. You do it because you should do it, or because it's expected. But the simple act of bowing, putting the head on the floor, directing your attention towards the shrine, and bowing 3 times, you're bowing to Buddha, to the Dhamma, to the Sangha. And the very act of putting your head on the floor is a physical gesture of letting go of self-centered thinking. So again, one of the aspects of anagarika life, going forth from the household life into homelessness, is it's a symbolic gesture of letting go of self-centered thinking and relinquishing that, or setting the intention to relinquish that. And bowing has the same purpose, that often we live with a very head-centered world. And the feeling of I and me and my me, sort of me, the director, up in the cockpit, looking out through these eyes and hearing through these ears, that the head can seem to be the center of the self, the self station, and that so that the feelings of I and me and mine can easily center around the head and the seeing and hearing, smelling, tasting. It's all happening around the head, so that the sense of I and me and mine can be very much focused around the head, so that placing of the head on the ground in front of the shrine, putting the head on the floor in a physically lower position than the Buddha, is a physical gesture. And this is how I would interpret it, or how I would use it, understand it. It's a physical gesture setting that intention to let go of self-centered attitudes, to let go of self-view, to let go of ego-centered habits, and to put the I so in a physically lower position than the Buddha, which represents the awake, aware quality of the heart. So it's a gesture of humility, it's a gesture of respect, it's a gesture of reverence and gratitude. So going forth from the household life into homelessness, it's and putting on the white robes, shaving the head, putting on the uniform of the anagarika. It's again, these are gestures of letting go of self-centeredness, of being focused upon our own name, our own story, our own personal identity, and being part of a sangha, being part of a group, and to reconfigure the way that we see this life and who and what we are, to change the views somewhat. When we go into brown in the monastic life in this particular tradition, then get a new name, which is another way of reconfiguring our identity. I was very impressed by Lumpur Sumedha this afternoon, reciting his whole paragraph-long name. I thought that I haven't memorized the one that I got with my Chaukun Raja name, but I remembered it for a few days, but it eroded very rapidly. So I'm extremely impressed that Lumpur, his were 2 or 3 times longer than mine. So I'm very impressed that he could remember the whole thing. So having a new name is again a way of letting go of the self-centered habits and the conditioning that the mind has about who and what we are, as if I am a man, or I am a Theravadan monk, or I am British, or I'm American, or I am a woman, I'm French, I'm Greek, or I'm Thai, or Sri Lankan. I am old, I am young, I'm tall, I'm short, I'm healthy, I'm unhealthy. all these I ams that we so easily create and take to be absolute, then there's the gesture of letting go of our regular colourful clothing and going into white in the Anagarika training, shaving one's head. These are physical gestures to help bring about a transformation of attitude. When you look in the mirror and you are seeing yourself without hair. I remember going back to when I was in Thailand, there were almost no mirrors in Wat Pananachart in those days. So when I became an Anagarika, I'd never actually seen myself as an Anagarika. And then I had to go into the local town of Warin one day, and I was walking along the pavement, and I saw this strange character behind the window of a shop. And I realized, oh, that weird thing, that weird bloke with no hair, that's me, in the white robes. That I really didn't see it was that was me. I was sort of, oh, who's that bloke? He's all dressed up in white like I am. And oh, it's my reflection in the window. I hadn't seen myself in a mirror up to that point. So that change of appearance, change of form, what we wear and how these are skillful ways of getting a perspective on those habits. No, we're not trying to annihilate our kind of quote-unquote old self or hate that or have aversion to it, but these are skillful means to get a perspective on that, to see that a name is just a collection of sounds, Amaro or Raja Buddhi Varaguna, or Lumpur Sumedho's Brahm Vajiranyana. When we see him, we don't think, oh, it's Brahm Vajiranyana. We think, oh, it's Lumpur Sumedho. But that's the name that we use to refer to him. But that when he was born, he was given a different name, Robert Jackman. And so we can so easily take our names or our nationality, our education, our professional qualifications, the ups and downs of our life are so solid and so significant, so real. But they have no substance. They have a form, but no substance. So there's a name like Amaro. There's a form there, Amaro, Amaravati. There's a form there, but in and of itself, there's nothing. There's no thing really there. There's no essence. It's an agreement. We agree to call this place Amaravati. 40 years ago, this wasn't Amaravati. This was St. Margaret's School. Before the nuns came in the 11th century to settle just down the road, this wasn't St. Margaret's Lane. It wasn't a St. Margaret's Convent. It was probably called something else altogether. So it's important to cultivate that change of perspective. And so much of the forms that we use, the teachings that we use, it's to help the mind to recognize the habits of view, the habits of perception that are deeply embedded, and to challenge them. Yesterday I was invited to give a Dhamma talk to a group based in Thailand, and the title of the talk was Everything has emptiness as its own nature. Which is an interesting title. Everything has emptiness as its own nature. And I felt it was a very useful area to explore, and it's exactly around this, that yes, we have these bodies. We can say, yeah, I am Ajahn Amaro, or this is a temple, this is the temple, that's what this building is called, and it has a form, has a structure, but there isn't essentially anything here. Or right now we've got the plans to build the new sala. It's like it doesn't exist yet. The old sala is still there, but when we take down the old sala, then the plans that we have in the drawings will hopefully take shape as a new sala. It's an idea, and we call it sala, but there isn't anything essentially there, that we take the pieces apart and then we give it a different name. It has a form, but but that form has no absolute essence. It serves a purpose, like this temple is a great shelter, it's a great space to gather, it's warm, it's dry, it's accommodating, it's got a serene and inspiring ambience to it. It's very peaceful, very quiet, but there isn't anything absolutely essentially here. This was built in the late 90s, so there was the old school gymnasium was here on this spot, and then it went out into the courtyard, the old school playground and car park, and so that was all taken down, and then whoof, the temple was put in this spot. But one day, in 100 years, 500 years time, 1,000 years time, this building won't be here anymore. Something else will be here, or nothing will be here. So that quality of emptiness, the empty nature of all things, is essential to understand, to reflect upon that. It doesn't mean that things are not useful. They have, like this building, it has a form, has a structure. It's very useful, very beneficial. It makes a huge difference to our lives at Amaravati. But if we think that the temple is absolutely here and is absolutely real and permanent, then we suffer. If we think that our body is absolutely real and permanent, we suffer. If we think our mental faculties or our health is something real and permanent, we suffer. We think our name or our story has a particular value or meaning, and that has an absolute quality to it, then we create suffering right there. When the Buddha was talking about this, one of the most helpful teachings he gave was called the lump of foam, and he was, I think, by the river Ganges at Ayodhya, in India. Well, no, Ayutthaya is in Thailand, but Ayodhya was the name of the place on the bank of the river, and there was a lump of foam floating along on the water. And the Buddha said, "You see that lump of foam floating along on the surface of the river?" He said, "The body, rupa, is like a lump of foam. That it seems like there's something there. There's something solid and substantial, but when you touch it, when you reach it, there's nothing solid. There's no substantiality there. There's no permanent thing there." Then he went on to explain about and to describe the other 5 khandhas. So he said, feeling Vedana is like a water bubble. He said, in the heavy rains, when rain falls down onto a puddle or onto a pond, then the water forms into a bubble momentarily, but then the bubble bursts. It has a form, has a shape. It's there for a moment, but then it's gone. So Vedana is like a water bubble. Then he said that sanya, perception, is like a mirage. Like if you're out in the desert in the heat, and you can see an image of trees or buildings in the air, but when you get there, you realize, there aren't any trees here. There's no buildings here. It was just a mirage. It was just a pattern of light in the air. There was nothing substantial. There was no thing absolutely there. It was just an appearance of form, but with no substance. Then sankhara, mental formations, ideas, emotions, memories, imagination, intentions, or a whole array of mental activity. All of that, he said, it's like the trunk of a banana tree. They don't grow in this country, but it's rather like a leek or an onion. He said, if you peel away the layers of leaves, there's no heartwood, there's no core, there's nothing essentially there at the very center. And so he said, sankharas are like a banana plant, like a plantain, that you just peel away the leaves. There's no heartwood, there's no trunk. It's just a collection of leaves. It seems to be solid, but when you take away the leaves, there's no thing there. And then the last one, that of vijnana, sense consciousness, discriminative consciousness, said it's like a conjuring trick, like a magician performing a conjuring trick. that they seem to be doing something magical, pulling a rabbit out of a hat, or making somebody appear or disappear, and it looks like it's a real magic, but it's just a sleight of hand. It's just pretend. There's no real magic happening. The rabbit didn't really disappear or didn't really appear. It was just a seeming, just something that was apparently occurring, but there was no thing there. So that when we look and when we hear those examples, we can say, "Oh yeah, so the body is like a lump of foam, or Vedana. Sensations are like a water bubble. Perceptions are like a mirage. Thoughts and feelings, emotions, ideas, memories are like a banana tree, a banana plant, or the consciousness is like a conjuring trick." Those can be meaningful and compelling images, and say, "Oh yeah, that's good. I'll remember that." But then we have a pain in our body, and it seems like, "Ow, that really hurts. That pain is real." Or this is my body, and I'm ill. I've got this disease, and I should worry about this illness that I've got, or the sense of owning things or being somebody, or our identity, our character is real and solid and permanent. How quickly and how fully those habits of attachment and identification get revived. They come into the being. They have such incredible strength. So when Alex was changing into his whites, I was describing the quality of mindfulness. And that is so essential. It really takes a constant, a steady mindfulness to be examining how solid we make feelings of comfort, discomfort, how how solid we make perceptions, like that things have a form. We say that's attractive, that's unattractive, that's beautiful, that's not beautiful. This is good, that's bad. How we give value to what we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch all the time. How we believe in our thoughts and our opinions. So if we say that's good, we take that to be an absolute truth, or that's bad, we take it as an absolute truth, rather than, oh, here is the mind liking something, here is a thought, here is an opinion. It has this shape, this form. It can't be absolutely true. It can only be a convenient fiction. It's an approximation. Every word, every thought, every sensation, there's no thing absolutely there. So there's contemplation of emptiness, and actively, say, receiving the experience of the five khandhas, material form, the body, or form inside or form outside our own body, or the material world around us, the universe, to constantly, steadily bringing that reflective, questioning attitude, challenging the habits of this is solid, or this is real, this is permanent, this is true, this is beautiful, this is not beautiful, this is mine, this is yours. And mindfully, steadily, over and over again, moment by moment, day by day, hour by hour, to keep bringing that to the way that the world is experienced, the inner world of our thoughts and feelings, our memories, our ideas, our opinions, our judgments of happiness and unhappiness, the way that we judge ourselves, the way we judge other people. I like this person, I don't like that person. I like myself, I don't like myself. I'm doing well, I'm doing badly. Just every single judgment that the mind makes, every way that we hold the perception, to challenge that, to meet that. And it takes a lot of work. When we talk about working at Amaravati, we can think of pushing wheelbarrows full of gravel around, or digging in the garden, or cooking in the kitchen, or organizing errands into town, or putting out buildings and painting, rearranging the library. But I would say that yes, that's one kind of work. But the main kind of work that we're really here to do, why we have these buildings and why we gather together and why we live here and have the structures and routines that we do, the essential work is this work of mindfully receiving the experience of the five khandhas and challenging them over and over. These five groups of experience, these 5 areas of experience, and moment by moment, questioning let's say the quality of those experiences when things seem solid and real and permanent. Is that so? Is that so? Is this really, what makes this mine? What makes this you? What makes this good or bad? What makes this something that is a right or wrong? What is the essential substance here? So that kind of challenging and that work of mindfully examining our experience, I feel that's really what we're here to do. What I feel I'm here to do, I'm doing mostly. I mean, I have the role of being the abbot of Amaravati and sitting here in the seat giving a Dhamma talk and so on. But really, I'd say the main job that I have is moment by moment, paying attention to seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, remembering, imagining, watching emotions arise and pass away, and to meet those with that questioning, exploratory attitude, that challenging attitude of or this is uncomfortable, or this I'm excited about that, or that's interesting, this is worrying. What are we going to do about that? Yeah. Oh, good question. And that the effect of that establishment of mindfulness and questioning the solidity of form, feeling, perceptions, mental formations, consciousness, the result of that is profoundly liberating. That quality of examination, the effect of that brings about the change of attitude. The mind then is enabled to let go of the self-centered habits, the conditioned judgments and perceptions that are deeply rooted in our conditioning, and the mind goes from that self-centered perspective to a Dhamma-centered perspective. This is why the customs that we have of shaving the head, putting on robes, and then living by the precepts, bowing, chanting, recollecting, taking refuge in Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha over and over again. All of these structures are there to help us to drop that self-centered habits of thinking and to see and to know the world from a Dhamma-centered perspective, a nature-centered perspective instead. That's I would say the purpose of so many of these structures. And then when that empty quality of the body and the material world, the realm of feeling, sensation, the realm of perception, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, emotions, feeling grumpy, feeling excited, feeling inspired, feeling sleepy, feeling depressed, feeling joyful, feeling completely neutral. The whole array of the experiential field from Rupa Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, the more that really is seen and known as empty, then the heart is, I would say, is really seeing with the eye of Dhamma, the eye of wisdom, the Dhamma Chakku, or Panya Chakku, the eye of Dhamma. That it's establishing a Dhamma-centered perspective, so that the mind is not receiving or say framing things in a personal way, but it is seeing in terms of reality, of Dhamma itself. And of the teachings that the Buddha gave about emptiness, I was mentioning yesterday, is in the dialogue, in the last chapter of the Sutta Nipata, the Parayana, the way to the beyond. There's a series of dialogues. There's a number of young Brahmin students came to see the Buddha and had various questions. And one of them was called Mogaraja. And Mogaraja asked the Buddha, what is the way that we should see the world in order to evade the king of death? How can we? What's the way that we should look at the world in order to avoid or to not be seen by the king of death, to escape death, effectively. And then the Buddha responded, if you see the world as empty, Mogaraja, then the king of death will not find you. The king of death will not be able to see you. If you establish the quality of mindfulness, if you let go of the feelings of self-view, if you let go of self, then the king of death, and you see the world as empty, then the king of death will not find you. So that's a kind of dramatic way of speaking. But what it means is, even though most of us probably don't go around with the idea of the Machurat, the king of death, looming in our lives as a sort of sort of a spiritual entity, what that means is that when the world is seen as empty, and particularly when the Buddha defines what he means by the world, what is the world? The eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind. What is the world? The eye, visual forms, eye consciousness, the feeling that arises based on eye consciousness. This is what is called the world in this Dhamma and discipline. So when the world is seen as empty, then the king of death will not find us. So what that means, I would say, is that the heart is seeing and knowing the world, the field of experience, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, emotion, memory, imagination, intention. If that's seen as empty, as not having any intrinsic absolute substance, then the heart is not tying itself to all that begins and ends. The things that arise and pass away, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, thought, feeling, the material forms. If the heart doesn't tie itself to things that begin and end, if it doesn't create that attachment to what it's not, then it rests in the embodiment of what it is. The heart embodies the Dhamma that it already is. So that the Dhamma is timeless, is unborn, undying. It's ajati, unborn. Abhuta is unborn, unformed, unoriginated, uncreated. That's is deathless, amara, amata. And so that when the heart doesn't tie itself to the born and the dying, then its intrinsic nature as unborn, undying, as deathless, then that is what is manifest. That is what is realized. That when the heart ties itself to beginnings and endings, succeeding, failing, gaining, losing, comfortable, uncomfortable, happy, unhappy, then when it makes those false attachments, then when we feel like I'm succeeding, I'm failing, I'm gaining, I'm losing, I'm happy, I'm unhappy. But when those qualities of the experiential field are recognized as being intrinsically empty, substanceless, then the heart is not tying itself to what it is not. It awakens to what it is, which is unborn, undying, boundless, unfathomable, and limitless, perfectly peaceful, awake, and liberated. So even though we might not go through our lives with using that kind of terminology of the king of death, how waking up at Amaravati in the morning, how can I avoid the king of death today? Most of us don't think in that kind of language, I would imagine. Maybe some of us do, but it's not what crosses my mind first thing in the morning each day. But I feel that we can translate it into our own languaging of things to make it more meaningful and realistic. That how can the heart be truly free, boundless, and fully at ease, fully at peace, limitless, in the world of form and in the world of beginnings and endings and the endlessly fluid, changing aspect of the material world and the mental world, or the aspects of perception constantly coming and going and changing. The process of the experiential field, that even though that can seem to be really limiting, it's only limiting if the heart ties itself to that which is limited. If it doesn't identify or attach to what's limited, it's not limited. That's the ironic and strange chemistry of these lives, that as it says in that teaching that we recite quite often, there is the unborn, unoriginated, uncreated, unformed. If there was not the unborn, the unoriginated, the uncreated, the unformed, then liberation from the born, the originated, the created, the formed would not be possible. But because there is the unoriginated, the uncreated, the unformed, therefore liberation from the born, the originated, the created, the formed is possible. And that's not somewhere else. It's not some other kind of dimension on the other side of the universe. This is the very fabric of your own heart, your own mind. This is, as Lumpur Sumedho stresses and emphasizes over and over again in his teachings, that quality of awakened awareness, that awakened consciousness, it's the very fabric of our life. It's the only real. It's the only real thing. That which exists means that which stands out, the five khandhas, are not real. They exist. To exist. The etymology of the word "exist" means to stand out. And so that things, the five khandhas, exist. They stand out. They're apparent. Form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness, but they're not real. They're not. There's nothing absolute. There's nothing fundamental, nothing essential there. But as Venerable Panyawado pointed out, the five khandhas exist, but they're not real. The Dhamma is real, but it doesn't exist. It doesn't stand out. It's not tangible. And again, as Lumpur Sumedho emphasizes over and over again in his teachings, the Dhamma is unimaginable. You can't create an image. It's indescribable. Because how can you imagine what is timeless, formless, unborn, undying? The powers of imagination collapse because our imagination depends on memory and sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. And that's where our imagination and our language, it depends on it borrows its reality from the sense world. But that which is timeless, unborn, undying, formless, unlocated, non-personal, free of time, free of self, free of location, the imagination has got nothing to work with. There's no material there to create an image, but that the Dhamma is the fundamental refuge. It is that which is fundamentally real, that integrative principle of all things. But the mind can't create an image of it. So I feel that's a very skillful expression of Venerable Panyawado's, that the Dhamma doesn't exist, but it's real. The five khandhas exist, but they're not real. And that's a helpful little nugget to reflect upon and to explore. When we take a principle like if we see the emptiness of the world, the emptiness of the experiential field, then the king of death will not find us. In that, again, even though it's using sort of dramatic or mythological language, what's that experience of being free from death, free from birth and death? In that moment of seeing the empty nature of sound, of sight, smell, taste, touch, the empty nature of a thought, the empty nature of physical sensation, of material form, then that quality of simplicity, naturalness, and security, that the heart that knows the world, that which knows the world, is not limited by the world, So whatever happens in the experiential field, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable, expected or unexpected, coming from inside or coming from outside, so it's just this, that which knows the world isn't limited by the world. It's not bound by the world. That which knows the person isn't a person. It's not born and dying. It knows birth and death. It knows the world beginning and ending. It knows sounds beginning and ending, feelings beginning and ending. It knows the world, but it's not limited by the world. It's not defined by the world. So that when that is realized, embodied, then there's a great ease, there's a great peacefulness, there's a sense of security and vulnerability, that no thing can touch that, because it's not a thing. that which knows the world is not limited by the world, it's lokutara, it transcends the world. So why we use this, the epithet for the Buddha, lokavidu, the knower of the world. That's the quality of your own heart, this very heart, this very mind. That's the lokavidu. That's why the Buddha is a refuge. That awake, aware quality is a refuge, and so we can know the changes of comfort and discomfort that go on in this body, or the changes of the weather or the season. Like right now, we're close to the winter solstice. It's the time of maximum darkness. It's dawn after 7 o'clock in the morning here in southern England, dark by 4 in the afternoon. The days are very short, but it's the turning point. It's the darkest time of the year after the 21st, and the days start to get longer again. But that which knows the dark time of the year is not dark. That which knows the bright time of the year, or the light time of the year, it's not light. Darkness and light don't really apply. Pleasant and unpleasant don't really apply. Gain and loss don't really apply. Those are all attributes of the experiential world, the world of perception, of form. So when the heart awakens to that empty quality of all things, and recognizes that there is even the word thing, it's an approximation. It's just a way of describing a particular pattern of experience. We can say, this is a clock, or this is a Dhamma seat, or this is a microphone, or this is a human. But these are just convenient fictions. This isn't absolutely a Dhamma seat. It was an oak tree, or several oak trees at one point. Then the oak trees got sliced up and put together according to a commission that was given 30 or so years ago. And boom, the oak tree became a Dhamma seat. And it'll be a Dhamma seat for a while, and then it'll stop being that. It's an event. So things are really a process or an event. They're not. There's nothing solid or permanent there. So even the word thing is important to understand as an approximation. It's a convenient fiction. When the heart recognizes there aren't really any things, there's just these processes that take shape in the natural world. They function according to the laws of cause and effect. You click a switch and the light comes on. You click the switch off and then the lights go off. The laws of cause and effect still work, but when we reflect that yes, cause and effect still functions, that's part of the patterning of the natural order, but all of that, say the workings of cause and effect, they function within a process that is essentially empty. There's no thing fundamentally there. And when the heart really awakens to that, in that very moment, there's freedom, there's ease, there's peacefulness. And then when that is recognized as the basis, as the fundamental reality, and there's a sense of ease and safety, security, freedom there, then that helps the heart to make those choices, to create causes for happiness, for comfort, for ease. So we take the precepts, we live according to our routines. Those are respecting the laws of cause and effect. If we take the precept to not kill things, then there's the effect of that is that we feel at ease, people around us feel at ease, or the living creatures nearby feel at ease. That's the effect. If we take the precept of not stealing, then again we create harmony and ease within ourselves and within the beings around us. So we are then able to use the way that nature operates, the laws of cause and effect, to make life more comfortable, more peaceful, more simple for ourselves and those who live around us, and we can avoid creating those causes that create more division, more conflict, more stress and difficulty between us and the world. So the precepts, the forms, the robes, these are all empty. Theravada Buddhism is empty. There isn't really any such thing as Buddhism, really. It's a human agreement. It's a set of conventions that we use. There's no thing there. It might sound a bit heretical, but I would say it's important. There isn't really anything there, but the laws of cause and effect operate, and so that on that the forms that we use, those shapes, in terms of our words, our actions, the rituals we follow, the customs that we have, that each of them is empty, but they do affect each other, and there's a way that those processes operate, and they can lead towards clarity and peacefulness, or they can lead towards confusion and conflict and harm. So we consciously establish the forms and structures that lead towards peacefulness and harmony, and we incline away from those forms and actions, words that lead to conflict and difficulty. And in this way, when we're both respecting the Dhamma aspect of it, the empty, fundamentally empty nature of things, the Dhamma side of it, we're also respecting the charana, or conduct, or the Vinaya side of it. The substance of this spiritual training is Dhamma Vinaya, Vijja and Charana, that quality of awakened awareness that knows the empty nature of all things. But then also its partner is Charana, or conduct, which recognizes the laws of cause and effect that determine how the natural order functions in the material and sensory world. So I offer these thoughts for consideration on this auspicious evening of Alex's going forth, and whatever is useful, please take it and keep it. Whatever is not, then please leave it aside.